Okay, I've come across a report on Yahoo News, which I think offers a lot of talking points. And I'm not going to read out the whole thing. I'm just going to read out the first few paragraphs because I think it's a bit tedious to read it all out. But just share a few of my thoughts on this. British travel blogger and her boyfriend, who are being detained in Iran, are, are mocked by Twitter trolls. This report is by Victoria Bell. Twitter trolls are mocking British travel blogger Jolie King, who is being detained in Iran for flying a drone, for having a white saviour complex and claiming that she and her boyfriend were asking for trouble. King was arrested alongside her boyfriend, Australian Mark Firkin, in early July after allegedly flying their drone near Tehran to show supposedly dangerous countries are safe for visitors. The pair were in the country while undertaking a round the world driving expedition they had been documenting online that started in Western Australia and was due to finish in London. Um, okay, so this young couple, um, I understand they were recently married, are currently in detention in Iran. Let me just say this. I think when we hear reports of this, I'm always a little troubled by callous response of some people. I think it's possible to criticize people without being callous, and I'm going to criticize these two, but I just don't think there's a need for callousness. I mean, it must be a very worrying time for their families, and I take no pleasure from this, and I think there's something wrong with people who do. Um, so I hope it gets resolved. I hope they're freed as soon as possible. But I will say this: white savior complex. I don't know about that, but I do think it's another example of naive young Westerners who think they know better. So I saw a blog a while back by a young travel writer, pretty much like these two, and he was claiming that, oh, don't listen to all the negative coverage of Iran. I know better. And he had this blog where he was introducing all these friendly Iranians, and I've no doubt that was sincere. Um, I mean, I've known quite a few Iranians in my life, and my impression has always been they're hospitable people, they're amicable people on an individual basis. Um, But so what? You can get that in many parts of the world. It doesn't change the fact that Iran has a brutal human rights record. It doesn't change the fact that dissidents are tortured in Evin prison. It doesn't change the fact that the gay community is terrorized. It doesn't change the fact that religious minorities are persecuted. It doesn't change the fact that women are constantly harassed by morality police. Um, this is not Western propaganda. This is just the facts. And I think some people like the virtue signal will say things like, oh, well, it's just Western media bias, or they think they're being open minded by saying, oh, it's totally fine. You can't believe everything you hear in the media. I've always made this point just because you've been to a country doesn't mean you know everything that's going on there. It's like these people that go to Cuba and they say, "Oh, well, it's not as bad as America and other countries make it out to be." Oh, they have great healthcare. They've got nice vintage cars, and the Cuban people are really friendly. Well, that doesn't mean that you're going to see the jails where dissidents are being held. It doesn't mean you're going to see the re-education camps, which would be the case in China. I went to China twice. I never directly saw any dissidents being persecuted or anything like that. But I know that those things go on because there's abundant evidence to that effect. So it's a bit self righteous and naive to say that because you've been to a country, you know everything about it, and you know more than experienced journalists and human rights activists whose job it is to investigate these things. Um, and this is just the latest example. I really hope these young people are released soon. If they've broken any laws flying this drone, they'll need to face the music, they'll need to pay the fine or whatever. But it should be a reminder. I remember a case, a really sad case, where two young women from, I forget precisely the country, I think it was one of the Nordic countries, they travelled to Morocco, and again they wanted to show the beauty of the Arab culture, well, specifically the North African culture, the Moroccan culture, and they visited a region of the Atlas Mountains, which is known for being dangerous. Um, and they had the same attitude, like, oh, it's all negative portrayal, so we want to show everyone the right side. What happened? They ended up getting brutally murdered by Islamists. Um, so there's nothing wrong with being open minded. There's nothing wrong with wanting to learn about other cultures and travel the world. But I think, there are too many naive young Westerners who underestimate that we do live in a dangerous world. And if you are not assertive and you don't, keep your wits about you, you will get into trouble. And your government can't always bail you out, particularly with the way Iran West relations are right now. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't agree with those who are being smug about it and being callous. I think you can criticize them as I am, but if you're taking pleasure from that, there's something wrong with you.